Battlefield 6. It's been out for about a week now. And if you haven't played it, I'm sure you've heard about it at some point because it's been a big thing in gaming this last couple of months, really. I have a huge history with the franchise, and I've been playing it every single day, even before the game came out. So I've been asked a ton. What do I think? Honestly, this is the first time in years that it has felt like a Battlefield again to me. But it definitely doesn't mean that it's perfect. So today I want to break it down. What's great, what needs fixing, and what do I think needs improving. The Battle Royale, of course, is not out yet. And I know a lot of people, especially from other games, are very interested in the topic, have their eye on the game for that too. And we'll see what happens when that drops. But I'll mainly be focusing on the multiplayer more so in this. I've heard mixed things about the campaign, and we may touch on that here, but I haven't yet played on it, and there won't be any spoilers here. Top of the head, if I had to rate Battlefield right now, I would give it an 8.3. A lot that goes into that. And obviously, this just came out, but it's a very, very good game. To me, especially gameplay-wise, mechanic-wise, the moments that I've already lived and experienced both on purpose and some of the glitches. But after the rough launch of Battlefield 2042, people were obviously worried this could happen again. We saw, and I saw it cried out from everywhere. Do not pre-order this game. Don't even think about it. People were mad I was even talking about this game after what happened with Battlefield 2042. And if you look at some of the issues that people had with that game, they've been rectified in many ways. Heroes and abilities have been replaced with the traditional Battlefield classes. The strange, futuristic, and not quite comical characters and different aesthetic was replaced with that gritty war setting. It being modern, I think, just pushes it a whole nother level. And the maps, well, let's get into the maps. Battlefield 6 boasts 9 maps on launch, showcasing a variety of different locations across the world, from Africa to even New York, fighting in the city. But this time, unlike 2042, there is no focus on tornadoes, sandstorms, weather effects, even day-night cycle here, just classic Battlefield core gameplay and Battlefield moments. From the open beta last month, some people were worried that the maps were going to be too small. We didn't even get to see any of the big maps, those being Morocco Valley or Operation Firestorm, which is a throwback map anyways, until a couple weeks before the launch. And that was just a preview from creators not getting to get hands on yourself. And I know I saw that a lot in my comment section as well. So I even ask you guys, what do you think now that you've been able to play the big maps? They took a big turn from going to the gigantic scale maps of 2042, I think, to going even smaller with these. The majority of those 9 maps, you cannot fly jets on, for example. Some of them are not even available for Conquest, purely being a team deathmatch, domination, King of the Hill, the small modes type of map. And I've said this so many times for years, is like, these style of games for me, I personally have played so much of, that the big draw for me is the new experiences. And a lot of times that comes down to the maps, especially with the destruction, the crane coming down on Morocco Valley. If you haven't done that yet, it's insane, especially when you're flying a jet right under it and it's coming down. But personally, while I do love these 2 big maps that are in the game, I've been having a blast on them. And even Liberation Peak, which I do think is quite a large map relative to all the other ones, I 100% have a lack of content on this front. Not even for the sake of scale of 2042 either, but just for the sake of all of the large maps that this game could facilitate. I'll talk a bit about the challenges later, but one in particular with the sniper, you need to get 250-meter headshot kills, 150 of them, which is insane, especially because these maps just don't even facilitate that long range of sniping. There are a couple spots, but the vast majority of even the sniping gameplay, even if you're going to do breakthrough on Morocco Valley, everything is far more close range designed for the ARs, the submachine guns, which is great. It does have still some longer range sniping out to 80, 100 meters, but this is one of the lacking points. And even to the sake of the small maps, I tried to queue into some domination and even the squad deathmatch and team deathmatch, but it would be like a 3 or 4 minute game. And then between games was taking me like 4 or 5 minutes sitting, waiting to have the lobbies load. And the maps that I ended up playing were all the same areas on those specific maps. Whereas I would imagine, at least, we could create multiple maps within a Morocco Valley of something like Team Deathmatch, utilizing even each of the different conquest points. Something that actually can be done within Portal. More on that later, too. There's a lot to this game. But I do think the good news with the maps is that they do each play quite differently. And I do think the variation of gameplay within those closer quarters does feel really good. A big gripe that I had with 2042, even especially at the beginning, was these just gigantic fields where you're just sprinting forever across them. And there can be locations like that in this, but even on Firestorm, some parts of it almost don't even feel recognizable to me when I'm playing it because so much cover has been added between these capture points. And I think one of the biggest things that do make these maps and help to differentiate it, even on the small maps like Saints Quarters, is the absolute level of detail. Of course, I just switched to a 4K monitor, so now I'm playing on super high resolution and I'm playing on the highest end settings. I tapered a few things back to at least have some more performance, even tried turning on frame generation, but I won't bore you with all the settings. Nonetheless, it looks gorgeous. And then you run up to something with a sledgehammer, and anything that's made out of wood, you can just shatter it. Being able to break open windows, make holes on buildings, even flying around Manhattan with the helicopter as I was crashing into the buildings or trying to land on top of them, the building just started to crumble underneath me. It's not the entire building coming down, but for me, it's been more than enough destruction and so cool to, feel that extra immersion with it. Most of my complaints are not even necessarily with any of the maps. It's more so the ability to queue in and play those maps. Now that I've actually been able to search and find games with other people, the custom search still does not work, something I tested a bit during the beta and had frustrations with, especially when trying to do like the sniper challenge out at 250 meters. You try to queue Firestorm, which is the best map for that, and it keeps putting me on Sobek City. Or if I want to fly a helicopter, Sobek City doesn't even have the helicopters working on there. Or if you play Manhattan, there's only one side that even has a helicopter. Same thing with Firestorm. I mean, the spawns of these helos completely ruin the balance of the actual gameplay of these maps. So while I think their design is solid, a lot of that is being torn apart. So let's talk about vehicles next. This is, to me, a big part of Battlefield. Vehicles are really part of the core identity of Battlefield. But did they actually nail it? In short, yes. If you're driving a tank, they feel weighty, destructive, the sound, the explosions, even the top getting popped off will crash into a building and make that building crumble because it has so much weight to it. The helicopters smashing into the ground, as we've seen from 10,000 trailers now, have an amazing animation to them. That makes sense. It looks real. The fire. If you see these things coming at you and you're a support holding your med bag, you're going to be worried. Those helos, as well as the jets, are so difficult to control, but they give you the freedom to roll and move that really most games wouldn't even risk doing. On top of the sounds with the jet screeching over your head as you're in a battle, it is insane. The biggest thing lacking for me is the progression within that, mainly the jets. They're just by default what they are. And it's not even that I want to have something to grind for with them. It's more that I want to have a couple different variations for loadouts. Maybe a stealth jet that can have some rocket pods, things that we've seen from previous Battlefields, and maybe it'll come back. Fortunately, the rest of the vehicles do have some customization, although there is a notable lack of the Little Bird, which they did mention. They've heard the cries for, probably from me. I love that vehicle, as well as the Naval Combat, which I'm not personally as excited for, but definitely think should be here, and I know a lot of people also want to see, and they've acknowledged that they hear the cries for. But from the beta, they made the helicopters a little bit more nimble. The new stealth jet, which we didn't get to see, is insane. The fact that you can do vector thrustering is just, it's so fun. And I am happy at least that the jets do have so much firepower with them, having 3 different weapon options. And in fact, the tanks too. Being able to cycle between an infantry round or a vehicle round and having a slight cooldown while it changes the shell out allows you to be a lot more dynamic in your gameplay without always having to feel like, I don't have the right loadout to deal with a situation. It just takes a little bit more time to cycle through it and make sure that you can utilize it. It's still a very rock, paper, scissors style of game. This is something that Battlefield's always gone for, and you note that a lot in the gunplay, which we'll get to. But the same thing with the air vehicles, where the jets are going to dominate the helicopters will dominate the ground units, and those anti-airs, they'll destroy the glass cannon that is that jet. A lot of people even feel like the jets die way too fast, but it's just, there's a good trade-off from everything. Although I do feel like that attack heli is the tippity top, because the amount of kills you can get in that is just ridiculous, especially when there's only one side of the team. Only one team has one. If you got a good pilot in that, you're going to floor the other team. And while the vehicles are tough, I think they're a lot of fun to master, can give you a break from the gunplay. I don't think they're too overpowered compared to the ground units. The recon's ability to spot those targets, the engineer's RPG, my goodness, if you're not using this, you can snipe out that helo no problem with it. We don't have the same problems as well from the beta where everybody has a stinger and an RPG. There's a lot more equipment to trade off. But first, let's talk a bit about the gunplay and the movement. Most of the time, most of the players are boots on the ground fighting with guns. And if the gunplay is bad, realistically, the whole thing it falls to pieces. Luckily, the gunplay feels great. I think some people are just never going to be on board with a Bloom style of mechanic in a game. Not only is there recoil, which is even more significant on mouse than it is on controller, and the balance between that is a whole another thing. But if you're moving while shooting, if you're standing rather than crouched, if you hold down full auto for too long, that accuracy will actually worsen. Your bullets will start spreading out. It's not always going to pinpoint right on where your reticle is. This is something that obviously takes some of the skill out of it for some people, or it's just something they're not interested in. They want to be able to perfectly match and control all of the recoil and hit every shot. But it's a different type of balancing mechanism because you can still hit your first shot at least, and even the first couple of shots with controlled bursts or just tap firing it one at a time. That was in fact a solution that Fortnite implemented because their game was solely based off of Bloom, and everybody was so upset eventually they did add that first shot accuracy. And that's where I think in some regards people are blowing this out of proportion because you can control it. It's just a different skill to acquire and master. And fine if you're not interested in it. But it also allows it so that DMRs are now actually more useful from range. Snipers also cannot get a one-shot torso shot from close range. They have a sweet spot mechanic, meaning that from these snipers, it's about 75 to 110, 120 meters. That's where you can get the one-shot torso shot when you're using it for its ideal intended ranges. You can still quick scope and land an incredible headshot, or maybe hit that torso shot, swap to your pistol, and hit a follow-up. But if you want to be one-shotting people close range, you need to actually pull out a shotgun, which then makes you not good at range. So it brings a different style of balance to the entire game, and this rock, paper, scissors mentality that they have, where in some situations, you're probably just going to lose. There are ways to still win, but it requires you to be playing as a team, to be working together, to play your role, which is the nature of the battlefield. As for the movement, now you guys have had it. What do you think? How's it changed versus the beta? There was a big outcry of too much movement in the beta with the sliding and continual sliding. The main thing I noticed is that you can't just jump into a slide and then do it again and again and again and just kind of surf across the map. It'll deplete your stamina and you have to wait a little bit before you can successfully do another jump slide. But it still allows you to do that in a good combat situation, which I love. Being able to even dive out or dive into cover underneath a truck at a capture point. It feels like I have control of my character and I can still outmove people. The biggest thing is being able to manage how much ammo I have because the magazines are very small in this game, and it has been usually for Battlefield, requiring you to try to play more tactically with your positioning, not overextending, and making sure you can take the opportunity of a flank while also using stealth in the chaos of the war. One final thing about weapons, though, the unlocks, and really the progression as a whole. While the gun and gameplay is good, and that's where I would rather it be really good, honestly, I wish the progression was just play and unlock things, primarily against other players. I said the same thing in 2042, but I think the rate of unlock should be much faster when you're fighting against real players than against AI. Keep the incentive to keep the people in a game. You can make full progression, unlocks, and everything against bots, even at 100% XP rate, which I do think is nice for the sake of Portal. And realistically, I don't think it's the end of the world. Letting people play how they want to is typically a good thing. Having more ways to play is great. But man, some of these challenges are just crazy, especially because a lot of them don't even feel like they're working properly. It seemed like a lot of the progression needed to have more testing in the same vein as what they've tested for the gameplay. Forcing people to play in specific ways, especially for insane amounts of time, like getting 250-meter headshots with a sniper, especially when there's not that many ways to even do it. But it felt like this was the least amount of innovation for me. But what goes hand in hand with the gunplay is, of course, the classes. And after the rough ride of 2042, going back to the classic roots of the class system feels so good to me. Unfortunately, because all of these gadgets are taking so long to unlock, we're not seeing a lot of people utilize all of them. Like the Tracer Dart, for example, I don't think I've seen anybody even have that yet. We'll have to see how it continues to balance. And I do think there's a much bigger emphasis for the classes within Conquest and the big map modes than the small ones, where you can actually see the engineers utilizing their RPGs, helping to repair up the tank and anti-air to take down that chopper. It does feel like the gadgets have a fairly significant role to play, despite most of these playlists being really catered around the open weapon playstyle, which was a big debate before all of this, and I've already touched on a lot in previous videos, this being the idea that any class can use any weapon. There's just certain extra benefits if your class uses the correct one, like snipers being more accurate using snipers. In fact, other classes trying to use it are not even 100% accurate, on top of snipers getting faster rechambers, longer breath holds, etc. And even talking about the progression, one thing I did like is that you don't necessarily have to play as an engineer to level up and unlock submachine guns. I didn't feel like I was forced to play with a specific way to level up my overall rank. I could play what the game is calling for and what I feel like playing. Until, of course, I needed to do a specific unlock for a gadget, which goes to my previous complaint. So in some areas, they got it right. You get to level 15, you get an RPG. Great, play the game. It might take a long grind, okay. But I continue to enjoy being able to really play any class that I want to and how the mode calls for it. And there is a lot of ways to play. The core version of the game modes, Conquest for me has been the pinnacle. My favorite mode to play, pretty much always has been, but the mix of everything is just a chaos. Breakthrough to me has a lot of some of those old Rush vibes, and while I haven't played Rush too much, more so on the Breakthrough because it is the bigger kind of version of that now, has been fairly solid, although I'd love to have more vehicles and more room on it. A lot of those maps you couldn't even get onto any of the roofs like on Morocco. I'd love to be able to get on top of the tower and maybe just add helicopters into that match. So now you have this back and forth battle of trying to take down the helicopter so you can control the roof to control the pressure. Nonetheless, they also have a new mode called Escalation, which I wasn't super stoked by because at the beginning there was not very many vehicles, and I still feel like there could be more vehicles right at the beginning of the match, but they add a ridiculous amount of them by the end of the game, and the map shrinks to a very tiny portion at the end, which has been surprisingly satisfying in some instances of my gameplay, especially when I'm actually playing the objective, especially boots on the ground. But when I am wanting to get into that helicopter, I get in it, and by the time I do, the game is then over, and my team is dead, even though I've been taking out the tanks because I can't capture or really contribute otherwise with as many vehicles as there are. I also played actually quite a bit of the small maps once I got the queues to work, and Domination King of the Hill playlist seemed to work better for me, but it was a good chance to actually really get into the gunplay, especially with a lot of the closer range weapons, and I had a lot of fun with it. I just kind of wish that like the engineer doesn't really have a great benefit by having an extra repair torch if you get to his like ultimate ability. Those abilities, by the way, seem like they rarely ever come up compared to what it was happening in the beta. Nonetheless, there's still a lot of modes that I'm missing, like Gun Game I haven't seen, or even any variations like Free For All. And ideally, I'd love to have that and even the ability to queue into a map that I want, like playing Operation Firestorm. I try to use the custom search, just like in the beta, it still does not work, putting me on the wrong map, being able to choose which side I want to play, which shouldn't matter, but because one side doesn't even have a helicopter, really does. And I think the big solution to a lot of this, of course, is Portal. Finally, we have Portal. This is what people are calling like the Forge that was to Halo, a proper sandbox that the community can create modes in with endless replayability. But now that it's here, how does it look? Outside of the menus and the server list, which I think are in need of work, even just the base home screen where you go through all of the menus was like the worst take to find what you want to play. But I got to play 5 or 6 different experiences, all the way from the wild things like Shipment, literally the Call of Duty map being put into Battlefield, which is a great meme for a little while. But at least in this first iteration that I played, didn't even really have a score to it. The spawns were all in one place, so it just turned into our team spawn trapping the other. But I think that level of detail, while leaves things unpolished, over time will result in cooler things, but not something you would necessarily want to still base it off of. And even the experiences that they did create were definitely cool for a run. There was a PvP only up style map, climbing to the top, that I played. And I do think going into these gives you an hour or two even of something fun and different to do, especially after grinding a gun or trying to finish your headshots. They're not doing any type of creator support program of things like we've seen Fortnite do, which may reduce some of the creativity or opportunities and time people are willing to spend in it. However, I've also seen a Rust map coming along, and I even tried the Counter-Strike mode, which was it's just so surprising to actually see something like that you can play cross-play, have all of the customization that's there in it. It's pretty wild. My favorite thing about Portal so far, though, has been the customization of essentially a normal mode, being able to take Conquest and turn it hardcore. I played that for a while, loved it. Infantry only, breakthrough, awesome. I made a couple of my own maps, but I would love to also be able to at least more easily set it so that there's 3 jets on each team for it. I did some of that in 2042, and I haven't had the time to get through my giant list of everything I want to on that yet, even a shotgun sniper only match of Conquest. And I think there's a lot of normal set of rules that we'll be able to do, as well as I'm hoping we can create like night map version of this. Weather effects, these are things that they mentioned we'd be able to do, and I had somebody working on to see if they could figure it out. Then it seemed like it was so easy. So with the complexity may come more time. I'm just hoping that people take advantage of it. The biggest problem that I've had with Portal so far, though, is that so many people are using these servers to create their own private one to try to get these impossible challenges done, that the server list is maxed out. There's too many servers that are created, and you have to sit there for 20 minutes trying to click host to actually create a Portal event and try to use it. So the system is just completely clogged up. But if they can continue to hammer this out, once the Battle Royale also does come out, if they can allow for customization with that and then allow server browsing for it where you could play with other community members around a style of mode, I think there's potential there. But even for the fact that they, I don't think, conquered the idea of creating a good closed weapon type environment for the players that want to play that, it might be a stretch. And even with everything that's been improved and fixed and comes along with this game, despite some of the setbacks that I've already mentioned, it also wouldn't be Battlefield with some rough edges, especially on the launch. I do think this could be their best one in decades, but it's still not all there yet. Besides a lack of vehicles, the maps to utilize some of these big vehicles, frustrations with the progression, queuing into the maps that you want to play but not being able to find or get into. There's also quite a few bugs. For example, in hardcore, if you turn crosshairs off, which it does when you're infantry, it also turns off all of the crosshairs for the vehicles, even like the monitors when you're in first person, which you're also locked to in first person, which I love when you're in vehicles. But small things like throwing ammo boxes and health boxes down that don't actually heal you or do anything. You unlock an attachment mid-game and go to change it, but that attachment is not possible to put on. And then even in the next game, it still doesn't work. So you got to back out to the main menu to then put it on and refresh the game so then it realizes you unlocked it. Mouse binds that don't work. If I try to set the map button to my forward mouse when I'm in a jet or helicopter, I click it and it opens the map, but then it will not close the map. So I hit escape, but escape doesn't close the map. It brings a menu up and you're just shocked for a little while. Of course, you can create a Portal environment to go test and learn how to fly, but even just not having one of those already created that people just go into and learn to fly on a little bit and mess around, like, how is that not a thing? I even tried to put the underbarrel mount on some of my weapons and it just never even showed up. On top of the absolute frustration that I've had flying jets and helicopters, trying to figure out how the heck to repair these things back at base. They have this whole new function where you fly over the base, refills your ammo, as well as heals your vehicle. In the beta, only one team got that. In this one, both teams have it, but it seems to me like it's on a cooldown when it works, and it's a shared cooldown across the entire team. So if another heli goes in, uses the repair, it's now on cooldown. But there's no indicator for any of that. There's no HUD to show you when the next repair is going to be available. Or maybe that's not the case and there's something else and it's just broken. That could be too. Because that, on top of the fact that half of the teams don't even get an attack chopper, which is one of the most powerful weapons in the game, is one of probably the most broken aspects of the game. But that also pales in comparison to the ability to fly to max height. on your teammate's recon drone by hitting it with the sledgehammer, which is a lot of fun and actually brought me back to the Battlefield 3 days of riding that MAV on top of the highway to snipe some people. And to me, is less of a complaint than everything else. But nonetheless, they definitely have a lot to fix and do. And I'm hoping that also they're not just going to be fixing things for the next couple months, but they can still continue to release content, which at the beginning of season, we get a new map. The next month, we get another new map. December, we get a variation of snow on another map, in addition to new weapons and a bunch of stuff for it. So I'm excited for that, but I'm also hoping they can actually deliver that without further breaking the game, and it's not going to be something that they have to delay other content for to just keep on fixing the game. So we'll see. I've been saying it for a long time, but Battlefield, I think, is a very niche game, and it still continues to be. Before this even came out, I was saying, I still don't think this is going to appeal to a lot of people, and I'll say it's brought in a lot more new players than I anticipated. I think they have broadened the gate a bit. Even as somebody who did play and hasn't been super interested in another multiplayer respawn shooter, I've been having a blast in this. But I think the longevity for me is going to be the addition of these new maps and how much I'm actually going to be able to access and play these portal modes. And of course, we all know Battle Royale is coming. They've already said it. So this is a whole nother avenue of the game that we haven't even seen yet. And as somebody who has played a lot of these multiplayers, that's an interesting aspect to me, just as Arc Raiders is for the extraction side. I've been playing so many of these extraction and Battle Royale games just because it's, to me, the next level of intensity where your life is more valuable. The stakes are higher. And I think if they can keep all of this core gameplay that we have here with this level of destruction and put it in a battle royale, have me actually now have stakes and want to stay alive with this character for more than 1 minute, it has me hopeful. But at the same time, I'm also very worried because of all of the other problems that I've been discussing. I'm sure I missed some things here. This video's already long enough, but I will definitely be going through the comments. And if you want to talk more, stop by my streams live every weekday. Thanks so much for watching, though. That's for this one. Stoneman64, over and out.